What's good, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about books, movies, TV shows, different media, I guess, outlets that have really helped me escape the matrix. A lot of things that I'm gonna be listing in this video have honestly changed my life. I'm someone who consumes a lot of media, to be honest, and a lot of books, and I watch a lot of different people. And so these people and the things that I'm gonna share with you guys today have been very, very valuable to me on my spiritual journey, but also my journey towards financial freedom and a lot of that stuff. And I just kind of wanna say before I kind of jump in that I know the term escape the matrix is used by different people in different ways, and apparently it offends some people, but really all I mean by escape the matrix is a change in your mindset. Like, to me, escaping the matrix does not mean you quit your 9 to 5 and now you're working in a different country and you're barely working every single week to get by. Like, that's great, but that's not exactly what I mean. You can have escape the matrix and still be working a 9 to 5 job. You can still have escape the matrix and still not be exactly happy with your current situation. It's all just about a mindset shift. Like, we live in a society that has convinced us that our inherent worth is in how much we're producing on a day-to-day basis, how much we own, and really how much money we have. But in reality, I think a lot of us are waking up to the fact that that's not the case. We are inherently valuable beings who are made of love. And I believe that we're put on this earth for a reason that goes way beyond just how much money we're making. We're put on this earth to remember who we are, to remember our connectedness to other beings, and to ultimately discover that we are made of unconditional love. And unfortunately, we live in a society that convinces us to live in fear on a day-to-day basis. We're in fear of going broke. We're in fear of not being loved because we're not taught that we're inherently lovable. And once you break free from this mentality, your life completely changes. No matter, again, what your job looks like or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, once you escape the matrix, or at least that's the term that I like to call this, you will not look at the world the same, because you will suddenly start to see a world from a different worldview than the one that we were brought up and conditioned to see the world in. So that's essentially what I mean by escape the matrix. These books and TV shows and movies, etc., have been very, very helpful for me along this journey. So the first thing I'm gonna talk about is books. The first book on my list is one that you guys have probably heard of time and time again, and that is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This book for me, I feel like, was really the one that really started my spiritual journey. I think there were a lot of external things going on in my life that really led me to this book, and it really just changed the way that I saw the world and myself. This book, if you guys have never heard about it, is about Eckhart Tolle and his experience basically becoming a conscious being. So at one point in his life, he was really suicidal and had a lot of negative, anxious, depressed thoughts, and he started to realize one night that although he was feeling and experiencing the emotions that he was able to observe them, and therefore he is a conscious being. Even though we have thoughts that pass us all day, every day, we are not our thoughts because we are able to observe them. And essentially what he shares in A New Earth is that the end to all suffering is in realizing that we are the observer of our thoughts, and in order to do that, we have to be present. Usually when we're caught up in our own thoughts, it's because they are focused on either the past or the future. And so by being present, we can become more conscious beings and become more aware of, and therefore less attached to, our thoughts. Throughout this book, Eckhart Tolle talks about the path to becoming more present and therefore becoming more conscious, and that is through diminishing our ego. So this book was really eye-opening to me because it was around the time in my life where I was really starting to become a conscious being. I was starting to realize that, like, oh wait, my thoughts, I'm having them, but I'm not them. So that book to me is one that I will always recommend as my #1 book to anyone who is kind of starting their spiritual journey, because it really puts a lot of things that you may be already experiencing into words, if that makes sense. So really, really recommend that one. The second book on this list is called The Book on the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are by Alan Watts. If you ask me what my favorite book is, I will probably tell you this one, and that is because this book to me was one that fully kind of opened my eyes to basically everything that I believe today. And I won't say this book taught me anything new. It just kind of, again, put into words something that I was already experiencing. And essentially, just like Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts talks about the illusion of the ego. He talks about how we are all raised to believe ourselves as these individual separate beings, when in reality, that's not who we are. We are all connected. We are all parts, moving parts of a single universe. So therefore, this identity that we've all kind of attached ourselves to, which is our individual identities, is not really real. And this illusion essentially creates a society that's constantly in fear. We misuse technology, we mistreat our environment, we mistreat each other because of this this illusion we've all been convinced is real when in reality it's not. So this book for me, again, was probably the most life-changing book that I've ever read. But I know I say that also about a lot of books, but this one for me just was really, really, really transformative, and definitely probably my number one recommendation. But I would definitely say read this after reading A New Earth, because this book is very, very heavy, very, very dense. And honestly, it was pretty hard for me to get through because it was written back in the day. So it's a little bit more challenging of a read, especially if these concepts are really new to you. The next book I'm gonna share on my list, y'all are probably so tired of me talking about it. It's called Conversations with God. And if y'all watch my vlogs, y'all know I talk about this book like every single video, because I've just been so obsessed with it. I actually just finished reading it. And this book for me really kind of helped reawaken me and re-show me that, again, we are all connected beings. This book essentially kind of talks about how most religions, and therefore society, because society is very much rooted in religion, our idea of God makes us believe that we are not inherently lovable. Therefore, we're constantly trying to prove to ourselves and to other people and to the world that we are worthy of love, when in reality, we've just kind of forgotten that we are inherently lovable. The way that I was taught about God growing up, there was a lot of fear surrounding that. I kind of was taught to love God out of a fear for God. But Conversations with God actually breaks down a conversation that someone is having with God themselves, and basically breaks down a lot of these beliefs that we've all been kind of taught about God, and just kind of rewrites them. It talks about God as a loving being who only wants the best for us. I used to be super stuck on this definition of what was good and bad, or right and wrong, and this book really dispels a lot of that. It really kind of convinces you and shows you that what we consider to be bad and what we consider to be good are a lot of times the exact same thing, because at the end of the day, everything is just a reflection of who we are. Even though you don't have control over all of your external circumstances, you have control over how you react to them, and how you react to them defines who you are, and therefore defines what your external world starts to look like. And so I'm not gonna get too much into this book. I just read it, as you guys can tell, so I'm still super into it. So the next book on my list, y'all are gonna judge me so hard for it, but I had to include this book on this list because it has seriously helped me so much in escaping the matrix, especially for me as someone who went to business school and was very bought into this idea of, again, capitalist conditioning, and believing that my worth had everything to do with how much money I was gonna be making and what job I was gonna have, and X, Y, and Z. So this book is called 4-Hour Workweek. This book was so incredibly transformative for me, just because it really made me realize that usually our definition of wealth is really focused on more, when in reality, it never had to be that way. Money is great, gaining more and more is awesome, but freedom is really what we're all kind of seeking. And it's really helped me realize that my goal is not to quit a 9-to-5 job and run my own business and work 40, 60, 80 hours a week in order to gain more and more capital and money or whatever. My goal is to just be free, have freedom of how I spend my time, how I spend my energy, right? That's truly what wealth can look like. And why this book has really helped me escape the matrix more than anything is not just the tangible solutions that he presents in order for you to, escape the 9-to-5. It's really taught me how to free myself from the way of thinking that causes a lot of people to be trapped in this matrix. It really helped me, while I was still in my 9-to-5 job, start to become less brainwashed from my 9-to-5, and really essentially see it for what it was, something that pays the bills and makes me money right now. It's not something that I had to attach my emotional worth and my identity to. And I was really able to start distancing myself from that and start identifying myself as someone who just wants to be free and working for themselves and being able to control their own energy, if that makes sense. So that's why that book has really, really been super, super life-changing for me. So that's it for books. Now we're gonna move on to like other forms of media. And before I start talking about like TV shows, music, all that, I really want to share with you guys some like alternative forms of like learning in media that have really helped me not only find tangible skills to escape the matrix, like my job and stuff, but also again have really helped set examples for me in ways of thinking that have helped me break out of the matrix like mentally. So the first one is Skillshare, who is actually the sponsor of today's video. If you guys have never heard of Skillshare, they're an online creative learning platform that has thousands of classes that can help you learn a new skill and basically anything creative. If y'all watch my channel, y'all know I'm a very big vocal advocate for alternative forms of learning, because I'm very much a big believer in the fact that, again, this system convinces us that there is really only one route to success, and therefore we have to trust our institutions, like our colleges, our public education systems, to teach us skills that we need in order to be successful. When in reality, we know, I think most of us know by now at least, that that is not the case. And I feel like I just spent a lot of money and basically ended up in debt so that I could work a 9-to-5 and be a corporate slave my entire life. So for me, I really wish I would have discovered alternative forms of learning like Skillshare before I just went to college. And that's not to say that Skillshare can replace a college degree, but I will say that, again, if you're someone who does not see themselves caught up in the typical institution of going to college and working a 9-to-5 for the rest of your life, I think it's very, very helpful to have learning platforms like Skillshare that can show you, again, that you can find really good education for a really affordable price. And also, like, a lot of times the best education you're gonna find is from people who are doing these things themselves. Like right now, you're not getting outdated old like college classes on how to do marketing for your business that's like marketing skills from the 90s. You're getting someone who's running a successful business like right now. So for me, with having a YouTube channel, I've been able to go on Skillshare and learn so many skills in order to make my channel better, in order just to be a better YouTuber. So for me, I took a Final Cut Pro editing class. And it was so helpful for me because I had never used Final Cut before in my life. And I literally started taking the class, I wanna say like on a Friday, and by Sunday I was using Final Cut Pro, and it just made my editing a lot more efficient. It made it more quality, and I was just able to be a better YouTuber because of that class and a lot of the other classes I've taken on Skillshare. So highly recommend you guys go check it out. No matter, again, what your passion is, you'll probably find something for you. They have such a wide range of topics. I will leave a link to them down below. The first 1,000 people to click my link will actually get 1 month's free on Skillshare to start exploring their creativity today. So I highly recommend you guys go check it out. So next we're gonna talk about YouTubers, because there's so many people that I have watched throughout my journey of, again, escaping the matrix that have been so helpful for me. The first one that I highly recommend is Heinz. Heinz is just such a calming and wise presence that I love to come back to anytime I need a reminder that I am inherently valuable and lovable and worthy, and the fact that, again, I always have the ability to raise my vibration and raise my frequency anytime I want. The next one that I highly recommend is, of course, Trinity. Her channel is incredibly relatable and also very vulnerable, as she kind of shows her journey really just waking up, right? She kind of shares her journey healing from toxic productivity and capitalist conditioning. She also shows herself healing from like different traumas and just emotional wounds that she has growing up. She's, again, just very open and very vulnerable, and it just really shows you also like how you yourself can treat yourself and how you can really kind of grow yourself throughout your journey as you're watching her journey, if that makes sense. The next person I highly recommend is Russell Brand. Some people seem to be still like very surprised by the fact that Russell Brand is a spiritual person here on YouTube, but if you don't already know Russell Brand, he used to be an actor and a comedian, or he still is an actor and a comedian, but he's also a spiritual and kind of, I guess now, like current events YouTuber. So I love watching him because he has a spiritual channel that's like, again, very great in helping you kind of learn new practices and rituals on how to just be more in tune with yourself. But he also has a channel now that's very focused on current events. And if you're someone who likes to stay informed and updated, but you like consuming media that is non-biased and also kind of gives you things from a perspective that, again, reminds me that we are all spiritual beings, and that at the end of the day, like, that's what we are. Like, yes, there are parties, there are nations, there are governments, there are this, and this, but at the end of the day, we are all human beings who inherently are, again, made of love, and we've all been conditioned to live in fear, but that's not inherent to who we are. And Russell Brand's videos really help me remind myself of that. And he just also does a really good job of presenting solutions and also just ways of observing and consuming and like just understanding what's going on, like, again, like this war that's happening right now, from a perspective that is, again, loving and rooted in, again, who we are, rather than like this fear-mongering way of presenting this data and these news stories, if that makes sense. Another YouTuber that I highly recommend is Activation Vibration. Her channel, I actually just recently discovered her maybe a couple months ago, and it's so good, you guys. Like, she's just such a loving and vibrant presence here on YouTube, and her channel just essentially shows you, again, how to unlock and access this lovingness within yourself. And I especially love her vlogs because she just really, again, shows you how you can see source in your day-to-day life and come back to this loving frequency in your day-to-day life. So love her. Some other YouTube channels that I really love, and I'm realizing that this video is gonna be very long, so I'm not gonna like give you guys the longest blurb on everyone, but some other channels that I highly recommend are Widya. Her YouTube channel, but also her TikTok are very, very great. In part 2, I can actually like list more spiritual TikTokers. So I didn't really do that in this video, but her TikTok is also very, very great if you like want reminders on your For You page about how to just be a spiritual being and again, come back to being present in your day-to-day life. Also love Hitomi here on YouTube. Her channel is just amazing. Again, she's just a very amazing light and vibrant energy who just shows you again in your day-to-day life how to come back to lovingness within yourself. I also love Leor Alexandra. Her channel actually has been so transformative for me, especially when it comes to learning about manifestation. I listen to her affirmations almost every single morning. She also has some really great guided meditations. Next, we're gonna be moving on to movies and TV shows. So I just realized in this list, I did not include documentaries, which was really dumb of me because I feel like documentaries for me have probably been a lot more helpful than a lot of these movies that I'm about to list. But I also do feel like movies and TV shows are a little bit more consumable for like everyday life. And a lot of these things are probably things that I would say like you wouldn't normally expect to really help you escape the matrix. And they're definitely not probably even intending to help you escape the matrix, or maybe some of them are. But a lot of these things have helped me kind of change my mindset, like accidentally, if that makes sense. So the first one is Broad City. If you guys have never heard of Broad City, it's such a funny show. It's about these two girls who live in New York and they basically are just dumb. Like they're not dumb, but like they're just so like goofy. It follows them around their day-to-day life. Every single episode is different, so you don't have to watch it in order, but they just like do stupid shit in New York and they're hilarious. They're like these stoners and they're like 30 years old and they're like still trying to figure their life out. Oh my god, actually my mug is a Broad City mug. I just realized. But it really just shows you that like nothing in life is that serious. Like everything in life at the end of the day is worth laughing at. Everything is a game. So I've been watching that show since I was like in high school, and that has really kind of helped me throughout my time like in college and stuff, just like really question like what is even the big deal here? Like why am I even stressing that much about like this grade when in reality it's like what is this gonna do for me? Like another show that has been very, very helpful for me is Succession. So this show, a lot of people are like confused by why this has helped me escape the matrix, for good reason. But I would say that this show has been very, very helpful for me, especially as a business major who comes from a school that again, very much conditions you to believe that like your value is in how much money you have, how much you're producing. And watching that show has really made me realize that at the end of the day, you can be as rich as you want, you can own as much capital as you want, but it's not gonna bring you happiness. This show is about this family of billionaires who have this corporation and they basically every single day are just living in constant fear and stress. Like they all hate each other. They're all constantly stressed out and dealing with some kind of bullshit with the company and they're just not happy. And it kind of just shows you that again, being a billionaire and owning a lot of stuff is not ever going to make you happy. That's not ever going to fulfill you, complete you. And a lot of times when you're constantly chasing more and more and more, it can end up being, or usually always is, detrimental to your well-being. Next one on my list is also very, very similar to that same reasoning. It's called Sorry to Bother You. Such a good movie. I actually watched that movie while I was tripping, which was not a good idea. I don't know why my friend put it on and she'd already seen it. And I'm like, why would you put that on while we're tripping? Like, what? It was so traumatic actually. It actually caused me to have a really bad trip, but the movie was so eye-opening for me because I actually watched it before I started working at Amazon and I had a really bad trip, but I think I was meant to have that trip when I had it because it really showed me that climbing the corporate ladder, again, like chasing money and chasing more and more is never going to fulfill you. And a lot of times when you get caught up in again chasing the corporate or climbing the corporate ladder or whatever, you get caught up in the system of again wanting more and more, but all you're really doing is creating more work for yourself a lot of times. And a lot of times you're also compromising your ethics or your ethical or your morale when you're doing that. So that movie was so eye-opening to me. I definitely don't recommend you watch it while you're tripping, but if you want to go for a crazy ride, then you can do that. Another show that I recommend is called Midnight Gospel. This one is based on a podcast, and this one basically just follows around this like really cute little character. And it's a cartoon, it's an animated show. And each world he goes to, he's having a conversation with a character in that world. And that conversation is essentially the interview that he's having with the podcast person. They talk about different topics like death. They talk about reincarnation, I'm pretty sure. They just talk about a lot of different interesting topics about the human experience and our purpose in life. And yeah, I just love that show. And that's it as far as my movies and TV shows go. Again, if you guys want to see a part 2, let me know. I can definitely include some documentaries in there because I feel like I have so many documentary recommendations. Next, we're moving on to podcasts. So I'm not actually a big podcast person. A lot of you guys asked me to make a podcast, and I'm like, I don't know if I can make a podcast because I don't really listen to podcasts like that. But I will say I do listen to a few every now and then. And one that I will recommend to you guys is called Above the Mean. Yes, she is my best friend, the host of this podcast, but I have to recommend this one because she interviews people who are doing such a wide variety of things that are so outside the norm of, again, what we are taught is the typical way of being. From OnlyFans creators to sound healers to even me. We did a podcast together and that one was really, really good. So yeah, I highly recommend her podcast. I will leave a link to it down below. The last thing I'm gonna cover in this video is music. Again, I'm not gonna get really deep into like a bunch of different people because I could talk about this for hours. But for me, when I think about music that has kind of helped me break out of the matrix, I really just think about music that is high vibrational music. High vibrational music essentially is just music that helps you come back to the love within yourself, either through the lyrics or through the frequency of the sound, or maybe even just the memories that you have associated with them. I think for some people, some songs can be high vibrational while they're maybe not for others. And that's because we all have our own experiences with different music. Same thing with all the things that I'm mentioning here. Like some things on my list may bring you back to this truth of unconditional love, while some things don't, and that's okay. And honestly, I think that any genre can have high vibrational music. It can be reggae, it can be rap. Again, it's all about what you kind of associate your experience to be with that music. I actually have a playlist that I will link down below. I made a playlist on Spotify and on Apple Music for y'all who have Apple Music. So you guys can go like check out that playlist if you guys want to see specific songs that I recommend. But some artists that I definitely will say are very high vibrational are artists like Willow, Cleo Sol, she's amazing, Raveena. I would say Khruangbin is really, really great for me. Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, they're both a very high vibe artists that I'm sure you guys have heard of. There's just so many. I could like go on for hours listening to different people. So yeah, I will link my playlist down below. I actually made this playlist based off of my own recommendations, but also a bunch of other recommendations that people have sent in to me on TikTok and Instagram. So you guys can go check that out. But yeah, that's it in terms of my recommendations, you guys. This was a very, very, very long video, so I apologize if it was a little bit too long. But definitely let me know if you guys want to see a part 2. I could again talk about this stuff for hours. Also, of course, let me know in the comments down below what books or movies or TV shows or songs have helped you break out of the matrix. And again, the term, like it sounds so corny and cringy because I keep saying it, but essentially again, it really just means breaking through a certain mindset and remembering again who we are. So leave your recommendations down below if you guys have any. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.